The distress call. In the amber light of a dying star system, the crystalline cities of Jexa Prime glittered like diamonds scattered across an azure landscape. The Jexari, with their translucent skin and communal telepathic bond, had built a civilization that valued harmony above all else. Their society had flourished for millennia without the concept of warfare. They had no weapons, no armies, no understanding of violence beyond academic curiosity. When the Void Horde emerged from the darkness between stars, the Jexari were wholly unprepared. Elder Linar stood atop the highest spire of the communication nexus, his four-fingered hands trembling as he gazed at the horizon. Black ships, angular and predatory, descended from the sky like rain. Where they touched down, the beautiful crystalline structures of his world shattered, and the screams of his people echoed through the collective consciousness that bound all Jexari together. "We cannot fight," whispered Aria, his second in command, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with fear. "We have never needed to." Linar's gaze hardened as he turned to the ancient device before him, a relic from the early days of Jexari space exploration, when they had hoped to find other peaceful species among the stars. They had abandoned such efforts centuries ago, finding the cosmos largely empty of compatible life. But now, with extinction looming, they had no choice. "Then we must call for help," he said, activating the quantum transmitter. "We must reach beyond our corner of the galaxy and pray someone hears us." The signal burst outward, carrying with it the desperate plea of a dying civilization. "We are peaceful. We are dying. If compassion exists in this universe, please help us." Captain Helena Reeves of the UES Dauntless stared at the holographic display, arms crossed over her battle-scarred uniform. At 43, she had witnessed humanity's expansion across the stars, fought in the Mars Rebellion, and survived first contact with 3 separate alien species. But in all her years of service to the United Earth Navy, she had never encountered anything quite like this. "Play it again," she ordered, and Lieutenant Commander Jackson nodded, tapping his console. The alien message washed over the bridge once more, translated by the ship's AI into sterile English that nonetheless carried an unmistakable note of terror. "Coordinates put it at about 40 light-years from our current position," said Jackson, "well outside United Earth territory." Reeves nodded slowly. "And beyond our jurisdiction." "Captain," interrupted Dr. Emily Chen, the ship's xenobiologist, "the signal characteristics suggest a telepathic species. The emotional imprint is overwhelming. These beings are facing complete extinction." "Not our problem," growled Commander Vega, the ship's XO. "We've got our orders to patrol the Arcturus sector. Fleet Command won't authorize a diversion for an unknown species." Reeves remained silent, staring at the galactic map. Humanity had clawed its way to the stars through sheer determination, surviving on planets other species considered death traps. Earth itself, with its punishing gravity, atmospheric oxygen levels, and extreme temperature variations, had forged humans into creatures uniquely suited for survival against the odds. Other species had taken to calling them Deathworlders, a term that had initially been meant as an insult, but which humanity had embraced with pride. "Send a message to Fleet Command," Reeves said finally. "Inform them we're investigating a potential first contact scenario with humanitarian implications." Vega's eyes widened. "Captain, that's stretching our operational parameters. Note in the log that I take full responsibility." Reeves cut him off, straightening her uniform. "Plot a course for those coordinates, maximum sustainable FTL." As the Dauntless changed course, the crew fell into a tense rhythm of preparation. They had no idea what awaited them, but humanity had learned the hard way to be ready for anything. In the armory, Marines checked their powered exoskeletons and pulse rifles. In the med bay, surgeons prepared trauma units. In engineering, technicians ran diagnostics on the shield generators and weapons systems. Reeves retired to her quarters, reviewing what little they knew about the sector they were heading toward. Historical surveys had deemed it unremarkable, containing a handful of habitable worlds, but no detected civilizations advanced enough for interstellar communication. Until now. 4 days later, the Dauntless dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Jexari system. The bridge fell silent as the main viewscreen displayed what awaited them. A dozen black ships, each nearly twice the size of the Dauntless, surrounded a beautiful blue-green planet. The alien vessels resembled nothing so much as massive obsidian thorns, their surfaces absorbing rather than reflecting light, and they were methodically bombarding the planet below. "Scan those ships," ordered Reeves, "and open a channel. All frequencies." "No response to hails," reported Communications Officer Patel. "And Captain, these scans don't make sense. Those ships, they're registering as partly organic." Before Reeves could respond, the ship's AI chimed in. "Captain, I'm detecting another transmission from the planet's surface. Same origin as the distress call." On screen, the holographic display flickered to life, showing a tall, slender alien with blue translucent skin and large faceted eyes. Behind him, a crystalline structure crumbled as explosions rocked the ground. "You came," the alien said, its mouth not moving. The words seemingly projected directly into their minds. "I am Elder Linar of the Jexari. The Void Horde is consuming our world. We cannot fight them. Please, help us. This is Captain Helena Reeves of the United Earth ship Dauntless. We received your distress call. What are these attackers? What do they want?" "They consume," Linar replied, his mental voice trembling. "Life, resources, knowledge, everything. They are not interested in communication or negotiation. We have tried." A proximity alarm blared, and Jackson's voice cut through the conversation. "Captain, 3 enemy vessels breaking off to intercept us." Reeves' expression hardened. "Battle stations, shields at maximum. Bring us into weapons range, but hold fire until I give the order. I want to see what we're dealing with first." The Dauntless moved forward, its powerful engines pushing it toward the oncoming alien ships. As they closed distance, the enemy vessels launched smaller craft, hundreds of them, swarming like insects. "Reinforced hull plating online," reported engineering. "All weapons systems green." Reeves watched the approaching swarm with the calculated calm of a veteran commander. "Let's show them what happens when you prey on the defenseless. All batteries, open fire. Point defense systems target those smaller craft." The Dauntless erupted with energy as railguns, missile batteries, and laser arrays engaged simultaneously. The first wave of enemy fighters disintegrated under the assault, but more kept coming. "They're focusing on our shield generators," warned Vega as the ship shuddered under impact. "Coordinated attack pattern." "Evasive maneuvers," ordered Reeves. "Deploy countermeasures and launch the Raptors." From the Dauntless launch bays, a squadron of fighter craft emerged, the pride of Earth's fleet. Each Raptor was piloted by a human whose reflexes and spatial awareness had been augmented through neural interfaces, making them unparalleled in close-quarter combat. As the battle intensified, the bridge crew watched in astonishment as the enemy began to adapt to their tactics in real time. What had initially seemed like mindless aggression revealed itself as a terrifying swarm intelligence. "They're learning," muttered Dr. Chen, analyzing data from her station. "The Void Horde appears to operate as a collective consciousness, sharing information instantly across all units." A massive impact rocked the ship, throwing crew members against their harnesses. "Direct hit on our starboard armor," reported damage control. "Penetration in sections 12 through 15. Atmosphere venting. Emergency bulkheads engage." Reeves gripped her command chair. "Status of the Marine complement." "Ready for deployment, Captain," replied Colonel Takeshi. "Just give the word." Reeves stared at the tactical display, watching as one of the massive enemy vessels moved to position itself between the Dauntless and the planet. A plan formed in her mind. Risky, but potentially decisive. "Colonel, prepare your Marines for a boarding action. We're going to punch a hole in that ship and send your team inside. Find whatever passes for a brain in that thing and shut it down." "Understood, Captain," Takshi replied, the enthusiasm in his voice unmistakable. "We've been itching for some close-up work." As the Marines prepared, the Dauntless continued its dance of destruction with the Void Horde ships. With each exchange, both sides adapted and evolved their tactics. But the humans had something the hive mind couldn't anticipate: unpredictability born from individual initiative and the instinctive human response to danger. The Jexari watched from their dying world as the lone human vessel fought with a ferocity they had never imagined possible. In their communal consciousness, a new emotion began to emerge alongside their fear: hope. The counter-offensive. The interior of the Void Horde vessel defied conventional understanding. Colonel Maya Takeshi led her Marines through corridors that seemed to pulse with life, their surfaces slick with a substance that resembled both metal and organic tissue. The air itself was thick with particles that swirled and responded to their presence, as though the entire ship was aware of the intruders. "Stay in formation," Takshi ordered through the squad's comm channel. "Remember, your exosuits are the only things keeping you from breathing this toxic atmosphere." 20 Marines moved with practiced precision, their powered armor enhancing their already formidable Deathworlder strength. On Earth, with its punishing 1G gravity, humans had evolved to be remarkably resilient. And in space, that natural advantage was amplified by technology. "Ma'am, getting strange readings ahead," reported Sergeant Wu, her sensor package scanning through the bulkheads. "Massive energy concentration. Could be what we're looking for." Before Takeshi could respond, the corridor walls rippled and humanoid figures emerged, not separate entities, but extensions of the ship itself, formed from the same biomechanical material. They moved with unsettling grace, tendrils extending from their limbs. "Contact," shouted Corporal Diaz, opening fire with his pulse rifle. The energy bolts tore through the first wave of creatures, but where they fell, the floor simply absorbed them and formed new attackers. Conventional weapons aren't going to cut it, Takshi realized. Switch to incendiaries. Burn everything. The Marines deployed flamers and thermite grenades, and the interior of the ship erupted in chemical fire. The Void Horde entities shrieked, a sound that vibrated through the ship's structure rather than through the air, as they retreated from the flames. "They don't like heat," Wu observed, making note of that vulnerability. Back on the Dauntless, Captain Reeves monitored the boarding team's progress while continuing to engage the remaining enemy vessels. The battle had reached a stalemate. The human ship couldn't penetrate the Void Horde's defenses enough to save the planet, but neither could the Horde overwhelm the Dauntless technology and tactics. "Captain," Dr. Chen called from her station, "I've been analyzing our sensor data against the Jexari's information. I think I understand what the Void Horde is, and more importantly, how to defeat it." Reeves joined the xenobiologist at her console. "Go on. They're not just a hive mind. They're a single distributed intelligence that evolved to consume and incorporate other life forms," Chen explained, pointing to microscopic images. "These nanites in their structure are what allow them to adapt so quickly, but they're also a weakness. They operate on a specific frequency for communication. Disrupt that, and the entire collective loses cohesion. Can we generate a disruptive field?" Chen nodded. "Theoretically, yes. But we'd need to broadcast it from multiple points around the planet simultaneously. Our ship alone can't generate enough coverage." Reeves considered this information. "Open a channel to Elder Lenar." When the Jexari leader's image appeared, Reeves wasted no time. "We've identified a potential weakness in the Void Horde, but we need your help to exploit it. Do you have transmitters capable of broadcasting across your entire planet?" "The communication nexus," Lenar replied. "It connects all Jexari minds. It could be repurposed, but many nodes have been destroyed in the attack. We'll need to repair enough of them to create a global network," Reeves decided. "I'm sending a team to the surface with the necessary technology." While one team of Marines fought inside the enemy vessel, a second team descended to the planet's surface in armored dropships. Led by Commander Vega, they carried equipment that might save the Jexeri civilization, if they could deploy it in time. The landscape that greeted them was apocalyptic. Once beautiful crystal cities lay shattered, their fragments scattered across plains of blue vegetation. Small groups of Jexeri emerged from hiding places as the human ships landed, their translucent bodies pulsing with weak bioluminescence. "We need to reach the remaining Nexus nodes," Vega told the gathered aliens, displaying a holographic map. "Can you guide us?" A young Jexeri stepped forward. "I am Mira, apprentice to Elder Linar. I know the pathways between the nodes, but the journey would take days on foot, and the Void Hunters patrol the skies." "We didn't come on foot," Vega replied with a grim smile, gesturing to the dropships. "And we're pretty good at dealing with patrols." Within hours, human Jexeri teams were spreading across the planet, fighting their way to critical communication nodes. The Jexeri, despite having no combat experience, proved valuable allies. Their telepathic abilities allowed them to detect Void Horde movements before sensors could, giving the humans precious seconds of advance warning. At each node, engineers worked feverishly to install modified transmitters designed to broadcast the disruption frequency. The Void Horde, sensing the threat, intensified its attacks both in space and on the ground. Inside the enemy mothership, Colonel Takeshi's team had fought their way to what appeared to be a central chamber, a massive space filled with pulsating organic circuitry surrounding a dark, crystalline structure. "That's got to be the control node," Takeshi decided, setting up a defensive perimeter as engineers attached explosive charges to the structure. "Once we blow this, we evacuate immediately. Fleets sending extraction at our coordinates in 10 minutes. "Ma'am, we've got multiple hostiles converging," warned Wu. "They know what we're doing." Takeshi checked the timer on the explosives. "Hold position. We need 5 more minutes." The Marines formed a circle around the engineers, their weapons creating a wall of fire that kept the advancing void entities at bay. But with each wave, the enemy adapted, developing shields against the flames, extending their reach, finding new angles of attack. "They're getting smarter," Diaz grunted, reloading his flamer. "And I'm running out of fuel." Takeshi knew they wouldn't all make it out. "Johnson, Garcia, take the engineers and fall back to the extraction point. The rest of us will cover you." "Colonel," Johnson began to protest. "That's an order, Lieutenant. Someone has to make sure those charges detonate." As the smaller team retreated, Takeshi and her remaining Marines faced the full fury of the Void Horde. They fought with the desperate courage that had defined humanity throughout its history, not the calculated efficiency of a hive mind, but the chaotic brilliance of individuals willing to sacrifice everything for their comrades. On the planet's surface, the final transmitter was being installed when the sky darkened with Void Horde fighters. Commander Vega stood alongside Mira, watching the approaching swarm. "They know," Mira whispered, her telepathic sense overwhelming her with the enemy's focused rage. "They know what we're doing." "How long until the system is online?" Vega demanded. The engineer didn't look up from her work. 3 minutes, minimum." "We don't have 3 minutes," Vega muttered, then turned to his team. "Defensive positions. Buy them time." The Marines deployed portable shield generators and heavy weapons, creating a perimeter around the communication node. The first wave of Void fighters crashed against their defenses like a tsunami, and for a moment, it seemed the humans might hold. Then the second wave hit, and the shields began to fail. 2 minutes, called the engineer. Vega saw Mira standing motionless, her eyes closed in concentration. "What are you doing?" "Get to cover." "Calling my people," she replied, her voice strangely calm. "All of them." Across the battlefield, Jexeri began to emerge from hiding places. Dozens, then hundreds. They formed a circle around the humans, linking hands. As they did, their collective telepathic field strengthened, creating a psychic barrier that confused and disoriented the void entities. 1 minute. Vega stared in amazement as the Jexari, pacifists who had never known war, willingly placed themselves in danger to protect their new allies. It wasn't a fighting retreat, it was a stand. System online. The engineer finally shouted. Broadcasting now. Across the planet, the repurposed communication nodes activated simultaneously, sending out a precisely calibrated disruption frequency. In space, the Dauntless added its own transmitters to the network, amplifying the effect. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. The Void Horde ships began to convulse, their coordinated movements dissolving into chaos. Inside the mothership, Colonel Takeshi watched as the entities attacking her team suddenly froze, then began to disintegrate. It's working, she breathed, then remembered the explosives. Everyone out. Now. The Marines raced through the corridors, no longer facing resistance. They'd reached the extraction point just as the charges detonated, ripping through the heart of the mothership. The explosion cascaded through the vessel's systems, amplifying the disruption effect. In orbit, the Void Horde fleet began to break apart, individual ships losing cohesion and drifting aimlessly. On the planet's surface, the ground forces simply collapsed into inert matter, the nanites that gave them life shutting down without their central intelligence to guide them. Captain Reeves watched the enemy disintegration from the bridge of the Dauntless, allowing herself a small smile of satisfaction. Status of our ground teams. All accounted for except Colonel Takeshi's extraction shuttle, reported Jackson, his expression grim. They were still inside when the mothership began to break up. The bridge fell silent, the victory suddenly tasting of ash. Then Paddle sat up straight at her console. Captain, I'm picking up an emergency transponder signal from the debris field. It's one of our escape pods. On the main screen, a tiny pod could be seen tumbling away from the disintegrating mothership. Within minutes, the Dauntless had recovered it, and Colonel Takeshi emerged from the airlock, injured but very much alive. Sorry about the dramatic exit, Captain, she said, supporting herself against a medic. Shuttle was compromised, had to improvise. Reeves clasped her hand. Improvisation is humanity's greatest strength, Colonel. Well done. In the days that followed, humans and Jexari worked side by side to begin rebuilding the shattered world. The defeat of the Void Horde had left behind valuable technology and resources that could be repurposed. More importantly, it had forged an unexpected bond between two vastly different species. Elder Linar stood with Captain Reeves atop a cliff overlooking a valley where a new settlement was taking shape, crystal structures interwoven with human engineering, creating something entirely new. We never imagined creatures like you existed, Linar admitted, his telepathic voice tinged with wonder. Your kind evolved on a world that would kill most species, developed minds capable of violence, but also of great compassion. You fight with a ferocity that terrifies, yet you risk your lives for strangers. Reeves watched as human engineers taught Jexari how to implement defensive systems, while Jexari teachers helped humans understand the basics of telepathic communication. That's the thing about coming from a death world, she replied. We learned early that survival sometimes means fighting, but it always means adapting. And the best adaptation humanity ever made was learning to work together, not just with each other, but with anyone willing to stand alongside us. Linar's bioluminescence brightened, the Jexari equivalent of a smile. The stars have many dangers, but perhaps with humans as allies, we need not fear them quite so much. And perhaps with the Jexari as our allies. Reeves added, humanity might learn there's more to strength than the ability to fight. As the Dauntless prepared to return home, carrying news of first contact and the threat of the Void Horde, a new entry was made in the ship's log. The universe is vast and often hostile, but today proved what humanity has always believed, that in our darkest hour, the courage to stand against overwhelming odds can change destiny itself. The Jexari called into the void, and humanity answered. And across the stars, Word began to spread of the Deathworlders who fought for those who could not fight for themselves.